Good evening and welcome to everyone to this month's Fixin's All Hand Meeting. We are really delighted to have you join us tonight. It is my honor and pleasure really to welcome our new Sheriff's leadership team, the Honorable Sheriff Ken Binder and Under Sheriff Chris Hewing. And let me say this for the record. Fixin stands ready to be a very constructive partner for the Sheriff's Office. Yes, we do ask tough questions because we care deeply about public safety and public trust. However, this leadership team is second to none, and we all have to give them the chance and the space to do what they do best. Again, welcome, and we really appreciate Sheriff Biden and his leadership team taking the time out to meet with us tonight. If we are fixing to do anything in any way, please don't hesitate to ask.
Thank you, Jim. And I'm Bill Newell, and for the last 6 months or so, I've had the honor of working with 4 wonderful senior class students at Sequoia High School who volunteered, came forward to want to do a project with Fixin to get the voice of our younger people in our community involved. And I'm going to pass it on to one of those 4 students, Caitlin, and she will start with a slideshow. Thank you, Caitlin.
Hello, thank you so much. Let me share my screen really quick so you can see the presentation. Is it working?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Hi, this is our presentation, Teen Views on Policing by Caitlin,
Alina,
Jonah,
and Matthias.
Just as an introduction, we're 4 high schoolers who have been volunteering with Fixin San Mateo County since the start of the school year. Since then, we have helped create visual materials and graphics. We've communicated within Fixin San Mateo County and attended and spoke up at ICAC meetings. Through Fixin San Mateo County, we've learned how to make our voices heard and be civically engaged with our community. Hi, I'm Caitlin. I'm a senior and I'm the project leader. I took interest in Fixin San Mateo County due to my connections and interest in law enforcement. I have a father who works within the sheriff's office, and it allows me to hear differing perspectives on policing issues. I took particular interest after seeing the conflict between the police and communities during the Black Lives Matter protests. Hearing the pains and struggles from both sides made me interested in exploring how to bridge these connections. Next to Alina.
Hi, my name is Alina. I'm a senior at Sequoia High School, and I've been volunteering with Fixin since the start of the school year. Fixin SMC interested me because their civic engagement is a big help to spreading awareness about the things that happen within our county that aren't often spoken about. During my time volunteering, I've learned about the courage it takes to speak up and how our community involvement is important. Next up is Jonah.
Hi, my name is Jonah. I took interest in Fixin San Mateo County because of my interest in the law. I took particular interest after seeing the conflict between police and protests during the ICE protests. Hearing the pains and struggles from minorities made me interested in how I could help my local community. Fixin San Mateo County has taught me valuable communication skills and how I can be better involved with my community. Next up is Matthias.
Hi, my name is Matthias. I've been volunteering for Fix San Mateo since September 2025. After hearing about many ongoing problems with law enforcement, ICE, and racism, I wanted to find a way to help. Fix San Mateo has been a great opportunity for me to learn more about local government and the impact it has on citizens. I enjoy attending meetings and create media for this community.
Now for the studies that we have conducted. Our group conducted both in-person and online surveys throughout several high schools within San Mateo County. Our answers range from all grades and asked teens for their input and perspective on policing. Some of the specific quotes from students are on the right, and some of the standout results you can see for Q1, we asked about how students feel about police and racism and how if they fear they may be targeted, and around 2/5 of them said that they may feel they may. And you can see a lot of them said that that's due to the way they dress or their area of cultural residence. And then for the second question, we asked if they felt educated on how the sheriff's department works. and only around 20% said yes. Furthermore, I asked if they had even known who our sheriff was, and only around 7% had said yes. For the last question, we asked if they felt safe around police. And around 40% said yes, with 60% saying somewhat, and I think 3% saying no. And this was due to a lot of them saying how the media was portraying them, personal experience, and hearing stories from other teens. After this, I wanted to figure out how we could potentially shrink these statistics and make students feel more comfortable. So we asked them what they think the police could do to potentially help form a better connection with the teen demographic. A majority of them said community interaction, interacting with the community outside of the typical police interaction many may fear. They said human first, interacting more as people, aiming to be less intimidating. We have a police officer who works at our school. Many students love him because he's super down to earth, but he can get business done when it needs to happen. Lastly, they said breaking the cycle. Many students feared after hearing how law connects to ICE, the government, and they said that education on different cultures may help fight prejudice and build better connections in the community. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been so wonderful to have all four of you so committed and learning civic engagement. And Bill and I were honored to be in your class hearing the presentation that you all did, all the students did for their first semester project. So thank you for that. Everyone's a senior. You guys are all graduating, and thank you for your time. But I am next really honored to welcome our new Sheriff Ken Bender and Under Sheriff Chris Shung. We will post their bios in chat, but here's a little brief introduction if you haven't met them. Sheriff Bender has nearly 3 decades of public and law enforcement service. He's known for his leadership, integrity, and commitment to organizational excellence. He was sworn in November 12th, barely 3 months ago, at a time of low morale and deep turmoil in the sheriff's organization. He had retired as undersheriff in Santa Clara County in 2024 after guiding major reforms there within the jails, implementing best practices and policy improvements there. He then served as interim chief of police for the city of Gilroy prior to joining us as San Mateo sheriff in November. He holds a Master of Arts in Criminal Justice from Arizona State University and a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration from San Jose State. He's also a graduate of the FBI National Academy. Under Sheriff Shung brings more than 30 years of public safety and executive leadership experience. He was undersheriff here from February 2023 to June 2024, and he's returned for a temporary 8-month stint to help Sheriff Bender. The undersheriff will be focusing on organizational healing, leadership, development, and organizational operational excellence. He began his policing career in the Foster City Police Department as a police explorer, and then more recently served as Mountain View Police Chief, where he led them to become really a progressive policing organization. He's internationally recognized for organizational culture improvement, adaptive leadership, and executive management. And he helped to found The Curve, which you'll hear about later, a national nonprofit leadership organization which supports modern-minded policing culture. He will return there as executive director after his 8 months here. Thank you both for your time tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Director Goodvan, Chair Lawrence, and all of the board for Fixin. It's really an honor to be here tonight, and I'm looking forward to just talking a little bit about my background and what we aim to do here at the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office, and then Under Sheriff Shung is going to talk about the organization and culture, and then we'll take some questions from you. So first of all, let me just say that how impressed I am by the students. Thank you for that presentation. Thank you for being interested and engaged in what's going on in your community. You're the next generation, and we're going to be at some point passing the baton to you. So great to see you get started. So that was a lot of fun. So as Director Goodman mentioned, my name is Ken Bender. I have of now going on 28 years of law enforcement experience. The vast majority was in just the county to our south here, but um, I grew up in the sheriff's office, if you will. I didn't know what I was getting into when I first entered the profession. I ended up when I went to college, I studied business finance, and I wasn't one of those folks that always wanted to go into law enforcement. I didn't plan on coming into this profession. I ended up kind of falling into it. I knew that I wanted to help people. I wanted to do something like the students on the meeting here. I knew I wanted to do something that would make a positive difference. I wanted to contribute. I wanted to make society a better place. Didn't know exactly how to do that. I ended up doing a ride along with one of the local agencies, and what I saw was different than what I had seen on TV. So, and we didn't have social media back then. The internet was around, but it wasn't nearly as prevalent as it is now. And so, um, and so I really didn't know what to expect other than what I had seen on the news and about law enforcement. So I went on a ride along and I saw the officer interacting with the public, treating people with respect, problem solving, making a positive difference. And I said, hey, this might be what, might be a good way to make a living and to do something. So I didn't think I had a background for law enforcement. I ended up looking at the local agencies to see who was hiring. I put my application in a few different places. I ended up getting hired. I got put through the police academy. I learned the fundamentals of law enforcement, was trained the proper way for how to do policing. And I got into the field and I kind of took to it like a fish to water. So uh, the first half of my career, and I've kind of got a tale of two careers. The first half was all operations. It was being a deputy sheriff in the courts. I worked in the jails. I worked patrol for a number of years out in the streets. I ended up being a training officer there, training the new recruits. I ended up going to our detective bureau. I worked in our CSI unit. We went out to all the homicide scenes and some of the major sexual assault scenes to collect evidence, process those scenes. And then later on, I ended up getting promoted. I worked in our homicide bureau for a number of years. I investigated what I considered the pinnacle of police work, the most violent crimes, tried to bring justice for the victims and their families, and did some really good work there. And that was kind of the first half of my career. The second half of my career was promoting up the ranks from there. And so law enforcement is we have a structure similar to what you might call a paramilitary organization. There's a chain of command and rank, and uh, the move from sergeant over to lieutenant is the next rank up. That's where you really get into administration. And so my first assignment was in the field actually as a watch commander. That was pretty brief. It was only about 6 months, but just making sure that the patrol teams on nights and weekends, while the rest of the sheriff's administration was off duty. I was the eyes and ears for them to make sure that things were being done correctly, and that police work was being done professionally and things were being done well. And if there were issues, I was to make sure our command staff was aware and that we addressed them or let them know what was going on when there was violence in the community. So I did that. And after that, I ended up becoming our police academy director. I had the opportunity to help mold, the new minds for those that were coming into law enforcement, to try to instill a passion in them, to do policing the right way, to do it with determination and with compassion, and to make sure that all of our new recruits had a guardian mindset as opposed to a warrior mindset. We're guardians and caretakers of the community. So after that, I promoted again to captain. I ended up being the captain of our investigations bureau. I had all of that homicide and sexual assault experience under my belt. So ended up being a good fit for that leadership position. And, that was managing all of the units at that point. We had a sexual assaults unit, a person crimes unit, we had a domestic violence unit, we had a juvenile crimes unit, we had the homicide unit, we had a robbery unit. And we had all of these specialty units that one of the nice things about a sheriff's office, and we have that here, where we ensure that our detectives are trained to be able to handle anything that comes across their desk. So, they're kind of niches. We want to make sure that our detectives are not only our patrol are well trained to handle in progress situations well, but then our detectives are trained to be able to investigate properly. And so there is definitely an art and a science to doing that, but and it doesn't happen by osmosis. We send our people to training to make sure that they learn the fundamentals and what they're supposed to do to be successful. And this is really important for our communities, that our community has a measure of safety, that there's order, that we want San Mateo County to be a place where people can live, work, visit, and play, and feel like there's a measure of safety, that they're going to be that there's a good quality of life, and that they trust their local law enforcement to partner with them to make sure that it's a good place to live. So after that, I ended up being our contract police chief captain we had 3 contract cities where I came from, and I directly oversaw that. I worked with this 3 city managers, 3 city councils, and communities in 3 different cities. So it was a great learning experience for me. We got um, handled everything that would happen with any of our local municipalities. So here in San Mateo County, we actually have 20 cities. The sheriff's office patrols 5 of them, and we also patrol all the unincorporated areas. And we have captains that are bureau police chiefs for those contract cities that the sheriff's office patrols. So I can talk more about that if people have questions, or if people are wondering why that is, or what the benefit of that is. But there's obviously economy of scale for leveraging personnel and trying to keep costs down for those cities that don't have their own police departments and they want to hire the sheriff's office to come in and do their policings. Um, After that, I ended up working in the upper executive management as an assistant sheriff. I was an undersheriff, which basically runs daily operations for the organization, what our current undersheriff Shung does now. And then I was the acting sheriff in Santa Clara County for a period when the sheriff had retired and before the elected sheriff had taken office. So um, all that to say, I come into San Mateo County with um, enough policing experience and management experience to try to add value to this county, to add value to the sheriff's office, to make sure to bring a vision and to set a goal that the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office is going to be uh, a leader in law enforcement, and that we are going to do 21st modern century policing. We like to call it modern policing, to make sure that our staff are well trained, that we build the culture, that we set the vision. And we started that on day one. Day one, bringing all of our managers together and laying out the vision and expectations. So my hope coming in, some of my initial goals coming in were number one, to provide stability to the organization. The organization had been through some turmoil in the last couple of years. There had been a lot of concern with the way the office was managed, and to be frank, there was an executive team that was there was a lot of holes in the executive team, and so, for example, there was a sheriff, an undersheriff, and an assistant sheriff. Well, there was an assistant sheriff that was supposed to be over corrections that had never been filled. There was a captain in our um, corrections bureau that had not been filled. And it's important to make sure that there's good span of control, that there's good management support to make sure things are being done properly, that operations are being run appropriately. And you can't do that if you don't have eyes on what's going on. So one of my first goals to come in when I came in was to stabilize the organization. So I did that. I told the community I was going to bring in Under Sheriff Shung. He had been here before. He had left, but I'm grateful to him. He said he would give me about 8 months to kind of come in and help lay the groundwork for many years to come. We believe here in the sheriff's office in terms of culture and organizational wellness and excellence, and also brought back Assistant Sheriff Ryan Monahan. And then one of the questions that I got asked as being an outsider, and they were all outsiders putting in with the exception of one um, for the sheriff position, it was that, and that was, are you going to bring a lot of people in from the outside? Are you going to bring people in from your former county? And my goal, and I told them frankly, no, that's not my goal. I want to utilize the talent we have within the organization and promote from within. And what I've found since I've been here is that we've got some really great men and women within the organization, all throughout the organization. So there's a lot of talent here. We're a diverse group. We have people whose hearts are in it for the right reason. They want to do public safety to better the community, not to be on a power trip. And so after bringing in the undersheriff and assistant sheriff, who were both insiders here before, we did an internal promotional process, and we promoted two of our captains into the assistant sheriff positions that had been vacant. So now we have a full exec team. We are in the process right now of promoting captains as well. And actually, this week we're doing our we're doing our final interviews for those captain positions, and we're going to be filling out those ranks. We've got lieutenant positions that are coming right after that, which is the rank right below captain. And since I've been here, we've already promoted two sergeants. We've promoted 6 deputies into our detective bureau, and we've hired 6 deputies and correctional officers and 4 professional staff members into our ranks. We're still doing some more work. We've got a lot more on the horizon. We're looking at, by the end of April and May 1st, bringing in 16 new people that will have graduated the academy, the enforcement academy or our correctional academy. So we've been busy. We've been looking at policy. We've been meeting with all of our teams. We've been laying out our expectations and and the vision that we're setting is this. And we try to keep it simple so that people can remember it within the organization and we kind of build on it. But 3 things as I'm talking to folks. Number 1 is justice and public safety. We want to make sure that we do public safety and provide that justice service in the most professional manner possible. And we're going to provide the training to do that. And we've already made the training process more streamlined and efficient so that we can get folks into those right training classes. And we want to make sure that everyone's trained on de-escalation, that everyone is trained on crisis intervention and mental health, so that so that our deputies don't stumble into situations, misread them, and inflame situations as opposed to bringing situations down, bringing the temperature down in situations. The second thing, community engagement, and our seniors talked about the necessity for community engagements, and that's really it's something that we've done well in a lot of ways, and we have community engagement teams that are dedicated to that full time. But I'm telling our staff, don't leave it just to the community engagement units. It's all of us. It's everyone from our newest deputy hired all on up to me. And we need to be engaging with the community. The undersheriff and I have been out meeting with lots of folks. We've been doing meet and greets. We've gone to um, community meetings, and we've been interacting. But I've been telling our deputies, every contact you make with someone from the public, you're an ambassador for the county of San Mateo, you're an ambassador for the sheriff's office, you're an ambassador for law enforcement. And we need all of those contacts to be good because um, what folks see on their social media feeds is kind of a different story than what they're actually experiencing with us. And so we have an opportunity to kind of show the whole picture of law enforcement. And you know, I don't know if anyone's seen the Netflix special. It's called The Social Experiment. And Netflix actually did a really good job. They interviewed a lot of the founders of, you know, the tech companies that put these programs together. And the danger of social media is the goal is always to get um, you on your phone. They want you looking at videos. They want you on your phone. The more you look at your phone, the higher their advertising revenue goes. So they'll show you videos from all over the country of either police misconduct or situations where things went bad. And if that's all you see, we're human. You can't help but think that must be what the police are about. That must be what this, and now I'd like to help people to try to remember there are about 18,000 law enforcement organizations in this country. There's at least 1 million contacts between the public and law enforcement every single day, 365 million contacts a year. And the vast, vast, vast majority of those are very positive and go well. There are a percentage that require where they don't go so well, they require for either force or some sort of interaction. But the percentage is small. But when you're talking 1 million contacts a day, you know, there's enough videos to be put online where people will think, oh, there's a bad situation. And the hope is, having been in law enforcement so long, is that no one wants to be painted with a broad brush. You know, none of us. If someone does something bad, no one wants to be painted with a broad brush. But what we have to do, and what my job and with our exec team's job is in law enforcement, is to make sure we have appropriate policies in place that ensure that we have best practices so that our deputies are doing the right thing and that they're having those good interactions. The other thing we do and need to make that we are committed to is accountability, and making sure that we set the bar high for our staff, and that if they don't meet that standard, that we hold them accountable. So that actually gets into my third point that I'm talking with our staff about, and that's organizational excellence. And so that's a two-sided coin. So the one part of the coin is we're setting the standard high and we're holding our people accountable. And we've already had folks just within the last 3 months that are on probation and they weren't meeting our standard, and we've thanked them for their interest in law enforcement, and we've sent them on their way because we want to make sure that we have only the best, the people that are going to be responsive to training, they're going to have positive attitudes, they're going to have good interactions with the public. And the other part of that third part, organizational excellence, is employee wellness. We need to make sure that we take care of our staff internally. That you know, I have the saying, healthy cops treat the community in healthy ways. We can't have deputy sheriffs out there who are burned out, or they've just been to one too many violent, you know, domestic violence calls, or arrested one too many burglars or whatever. We need to make sure that we take care of our people mentally, that they're mentally well, and then that gives them the best opportunity to interact well with the public, to not lose their temper, to not take things personally. Law enforcement's a tough job, and they interact with a lot of folks, and some folks love law enforcement and some folks don't, but we need to make sure that our people are professional and that they don't take things personally and that they don't interact or target anyone personally. That there's always what we call procedural justice, that there's an objective standard, we hold to it, and when decisions are made, they need to be made with all the input and then and explained to all the stakeholders so that people at least understand why things are done the way they're done. So I don't want to talk too much longer. There's more that we can talk about, but I'm going to pass it off to the undersheriff, and then we'll be happy to take some questions.
Thank you, Sheriff. Good evening, everybody. Chris Chung here. I serve as your undersheriff. It's just an honor to be here. And as the sheriff had echoed, it's so encouraging to see our youth basically picking up the baton at this point. I wish I could have been this engaged at the same time in my high school life. So good on you. Um, you know, it. I'll touch a little bit on the work that I've done in the nonprofit space. I think it actually blends quite well with the group, the topic, and even the presentation that the students did. And I'll share why. I think it was Caitlin that mentioned, this finding a bridge between, what the police point of view perspective is and the angst and the harm and the hurt that's across the country during some really high profile events. That's actually the foundational story of the curve. It was the summer of 2020 when we saw the murder of George Floyd. And whether you know this or not, there were a lot of police chiefs in the background and sheriffs who were trying to figure out, like, what do we do? Like, um, you know, and by that time we had already seen a couple high profile events happening across the country. And so I want to preface what I'm about to talk about with perspective. And I think perspective, that word perspective, is very important for not just what we talk about tonight, but as you go forward, including, all the different issues that Fixin takes on, because the perspective I bring is a national one. Yes, I grew up here in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Mateo County, actually. Although my policing career was here, started off at Foster City PD as a police explorer at the age of 16. I went off to, Santa Clara County, but in the latter half of my profession, I ended up doing a lot of conference speaking and teaching on the topic of leadership across the country. And these are if you imagine where police chiefs all go to one annual conference a year, there's probably like 15,000 police chiefs from across the country, and likewise in sheriff's groups from across the country as well. And I've talked to a ton of them, and that's given me a lot of perspective. And one of the big perspective takeaways is, I'm sure we've all traveled. We've all been to different cities around the country, into different countries or cities across the world. Every city is different. I hope everyone can agree with that, right? Like, even in San Mateo County, every city within San Mateo County is uniquely different. And that's the part I want to impress upon all of you, is that every police department and every sheriff's office across the country is basically somewhat of a representation of the community that they serve. The community standards, the hiring standards, the policing standards. And for anyone that says the police, that's actually an overly broad generalization, because we're a unique country in that we don't have a national police force. You look at other countries in Europe, some of them have just a national police force. So you can say the police do this, the police do that. Here in this country, as the sheriff mentioned, there's over 18,000 police entities, departments, sheriff's offices. And with that, there are over 18,000 cultures. There are some really good ones, and there are plenty of bad ones. Right. And so as I've looked across really high profile events, if you take the Memphis Tyree Nichols incident, which was horrible to watch, what I saw there, not only was it disgusting, but I actually looked at it from the lens of culture. When that occurred, and for those that aren't aware, that was basically a street crimes team at Memphis Police Department that jumped out, and it didn't even look like anything resembling tactics. It was just a beatdown, right? So when I look at that, I see culture. in the sense that that's a team culture on that team that allows for that behavior. That's a leadership culture, a supervisor who probably encourages that. That's a management culture that might turn a blind eye. And so you can see how culture plays this integral role. What is not often seen a lot in the country, because it's really not covered by media, it's not fun to cover, is positive cultures, great interactions, officers or deputies that go the extra mile because that's who they are. They're good people. We hire good people, right? And when they do great things, it doesn't lead the news at night. It doesn't get shared that often on social media. Now, occasionally, yes, you do see it. But to the sheriff's point, the way the algorithms work, if you start watching a certain, let's just say, purple elephants, you're going to see more and more purple elephants for the rest of the night. And I apologize for anyone tonight when you go on your feeds and you start seeing purple elephants. But so the curve was basically founded to modernize policing culture, and it's because of this. I often, when I'm standing in front of a group of 500 or 1,000 police leaders, I will ask them, why did you get into this line of work? And was there a TV show that prompted you to do that? And to a person, they'll raise their hand, and everyone can think back to a police television show that kind of inspired them to want to get in this line of work. Well, the problem, that's not a problem. It's actually funny. I mean, I'll date myself and say that mine was TJ Hooker and Chips, right? So that makes me a really old person. And if you don't know what those shows are, that's okay. That just makes you a young person. But the other part of that happens is that Hollywood culture, if you think about it, think about the number of cop shows on Netflix and movies and a lot of the number of movies that are made. And think about how much of that ratio actually informs you on what you think a cop does and how a police officer or a deputy is supposed to act. And I will speak for our profession as a whole. We're humans, and so we're susceptible as well. And so we start to behave sometimes like the way we see things on TV. It's not good. I'm just saying that that's sometimes what happens, right? I remember as a brand new officer in the late 90s, I saw our narcotics unit. And they were dressed in a gray suit with a skinny pink tie, wearing boat shoes with no socks. Now, if you're laughing, it's because you're laughing that there was a TV show called Miami Vice at the time, and that's how the narcotics officers dressed. And again, if you don't get the joke, you can look it up later and laugh later. So in the curve, what we do is we provide this inspiration to policing leaders and resources and say, look, culture is the key to modernizing and making an awesome public safety agency. When you have leaders at the top who put humanity first, right? When you lead with humanity and it's humans leading humans, then the chances are the way that your deputies or your officers are treated is the same way they're going to treat the public. So let me give you two parallel lines there. If it's just you have leaders who have a leadership philosophy of power, of rank, and they just order people around. They don't have the respect of their troops, but their troops have to listen to them because they're just being ordered around all day. Well, we all know that, with the badge comes a lot of responsibility and a lot of power. Now, what happens when that same deputy or officer who's treated that way internally is now out on the street, right? They're going to default to what they know internally, which is they're going to rely on their rank or their power or their authority. Flip side to that, you have a leadership team and a leadership philosophy who understands that the rank doesn't make them a leader, but it's just their responsibility to serve those within their charge, within those that they're in charge of. And so this kind of more human-based leadership, servant-minded leadership, really makes it a much better environment to work in. I mean, police work is very, very difficult. There's so many different challenges. And when you have leaders that care and leaders that treat their folks humanely, what I see looking across the country are that you have officers and deputies who treat their community in much the same way. They see each other as humans, not as those people out on the street or whatever you might have. So this is it's a 2-hour presentation that I've given on this, and I'm shortening it down to about 5 to 10 minutes. But to bring it back to San Mateo County, I want you to know that the sheriff's office is an incredible place filled with incredible, talented humans. they care. They care deeply about our community. I hear it across the board. I can see it in their actions. I'll share with you a very quick story. We have something called daily reports. Basically, every team does a quick briefing on, what happened during their day and what they covered. I just happened to be looking at one that our coast side supervisor who just kind of outlined a very busy night. But then on the bottom section, he listed, briefing topics covered tonight. And the briefing topic for that night that he led was humanity, like how to treat each other as humans. And this just happened like 2 days ago. And so I'm reading it, and he talked about, when we talk to each other as humans, it means that we understand and see things through different eyes, different perspectives. It's a great tool in de-escalating any situation when we can put ourselves in the role of someone else through their hurt, through their pain. And as I read that, the takeaway that I had was, this is culture. This isn't policy. No policy will dictate telling a leader to go and train on this topic. It's the culture of the San Mateo County Sheriff's Office to do just this, right? And I couldn't have been more proud to see that, yes, we have our line level supervisors, our managers. They treat each other with dignity and respect. They care for each other. And everything I've seen, and if you follow me on social media, I love sneaking out of the office and going on ride-alongs and spending time with our deputies out on the street. They love the job that they do, and they're really proud to do it for all of you. So I'll stop there and hand it off back to Nancy.
Okay. Actually, it's going to be Trina. I will be asking you both some questions from our chat. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So the first question I will ask is, in your idea of modern policing, where does civilian oversight fall? Where does it fit?
Mhm. Sure, I'll start take a stab at that one. So I came there's a place for oversight, and I will say that there is oversight right now in terms of for sheriff's offices. For sheriff's office, you've got first of all, for our new hires, we've got an 18-month probationary period where we train them, monitor them, see how they're responding. As you start to work your way up for the organization itself, for sheriffs, there's elections every 4 years. There's community meetings where we have to answer to what our staff has done. We have, in terms of legality, you've got a California Attorney General's office. We have the court system, superior courts. So there's various levels of oversight already baked in. Now there's some communities that take an additional level and will implement an oversight board. We've done that here in San Mateo County with ICAC, the Independent Civilian Advisory Council. And there's various levels of authority that these oversight groups can be given. I come from a county where we had oversight, and I worked well with it. I was very responsive in my role leading the daily operations of that sheriff's office. We had almost 2,000 people at full staffing. And I will say that oversight can be necessary when you have law enforcement leadership that is not responsive to the public or to the board of supervisors or to community interest groups. So if you've got leadership that, I think if you have leadership that holds people accountable, their staff accountable, and is accessible to the public and has dialogue and is transparent as legally can be. There are peace officer protections for personnel files and certain investigative files.
Sure.
But outside of that, you should have leadership that is open and honest. Then you may or may not need that additional layer of oversight. And it all depends on the community. There's some communities that have it, and there's some communities that don't.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Uh,
So, go ahead. Oh, Under Sheriff?
all right, real quick. The only thing I would just add to that, the sheriff covered it quite well, is a quote that I like that I found online is that transparency doesn't mean sharing every detail. Transparency means providing the context for which decisions are made. And I think that distinction is very important. Um, because a lot of times what we've seen in the past is, a lot of people think transparency means you have to tell me everything you know right now. But because of the different investigative things that happen, different investigative bodies, procedure, fact finding, there's a lot that takes time, right? And so, our commitment is absolutely we'll try to provide as much context as we can to any situation that comes up. But we'd ask the public and Fixin as well. There's times where we're legally unable to do that, or by saying something prematurely, we might actually jeopardize the outcome of an investigation. And unfortunately, a lot of times that's taken and we're kind of raked over the coals in the media by various groups because of that. And that's just not fair, right? So we want to make sure that you all know we're going to be as transparent as we can. And so, like, if you wanted to talk ahead of time, like in this situation, how would you do this? We'll provide as much detail as you want, right? And explain the processes because that's providing the context. But once something happens, we have a lot of procedures and rules to follow.
Perfect example, really quickly.
Good.
Back in 2015, there were 3 custody deputies that were horrible people. They did really, they attacked an inmate, and the inmate did not make it. They killed an inmate. It's the worst nightmare for any law enforcement leader to 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 see that. Well, we had taken immediate action to investigate those deputies. Uh, the last thing we wanted to do, we wanted to do the right thing, and we were working behind the scenes, and we ended up arresting all 3, but it took 7 days to get there. Now, meanwhile, during that 7 days, we had outrage from the public, worried that the sheriff's office was going to cover it up, that they weren't going to hold their people accountable, that we had people guessing and filling in the blanks about the victim wrongly, and making accusations, and all of that was false. And the sheriff's office was in a tough position because they were doing the right thing, and we were doing the right thing, but we didn't want to jeopardize the investigation. We wanted to make sure that at the end of the day, justice was served, and it was. We ended up arresting them, and then we brought in. We ended up getting recommendations for how we could improve jail conditions. By the way, I was not over the jails when that happened. I was over our patrol bureau. I was an assistant sheriff, not an undersheriff or sheriff. However, watching from the side, I learned a lot. I learned a lot about best practices for the jail, about what to look out for, and what to do to make sure that we that our deputies and correctional officers in the jails are doing what they're supposed to do, and that there's proper supervision, and that our managers are holding our supervisors accountable, and that we at the top are setting the proper vision and checking in. So learned a lot from that, but that's just a perfect example of when the public doesn't have enough information, they fill in the gaps, and it's generally with wrong information, and it's generally in a way that is not always the best, but you've got to have leadership that's doing the right thing, and then in due time, you want all the facts to be able to come out.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, now a couple of questions about a topic I'm sure you're aware of because it's very hot right now, and that has to do with flock cameras.
Yes.
And so, what is your take on flock being expanded beyond entry and exit points in communities? Um,
Yes.
a woman, Phoebe Shin Venkat from Foster City, tells us that their council just voted 4-1, adding several more cameras in the residential areas. And with that, how do you all protect the data
Mhm.
that flock
Yes, is
collect?
garnering.
Yeah.
Sure. Great question, and this is a question we're getting. And I will say with any tool out there, and it's not just Flock ALPRs, automated license plate readers, cameras out there. There's a tool that can be effective to protect the community, but can also be misused. And if it's misused, then it's obviously not good for the community. So we at the sheriff's office, along with the board of supervisors, we've gotten out in front of this. So we actually already met with Flock and to figure out exactly what happened recently and what can we do and what's been done. So what ended up happening was apparently there was a breach a couple of years ago that has just recently come to light within the last month or two. It's been in a couple of local counties, and the data is not to be shared by California law. It's not supposed to be shared outside of the state of California, and it's not shared with federal immigration officers. So obviously, when we heard that there had been breach, we were very concerned at the sheriff's office. We had already done audits, regular audits every year, and we did more audits. And to make sure, and as far as we know, as far as we're aware at this point, our data in this county has not been shared outside of the state of California or with federal immigration authorities. We would never allow that. And so when we met with Flock, we found out that there was a technical glitch that they had to work through. And as of last year, anyways, last October, it's not even possible to share outside of the state of California or with federal immigration authorities. So we've got that measure of comfort to make sure that the data is not going where it's not supposed to. In order for the data to be effective, it does need to be shared with other law enforcement agencies because we've got people who commit burglaries don't tend to stay in one city. We call them burglar crews, and they go from city to city. And when they break into houses, we need to share that data with our local law enforcement partners to try to put the pieces together to figure out who's conducting these so that we can protect you, the community. But what we want to make sure is we have the proper policy in place to make sure that the equipment is not abused. So we require all use of the flock cameras by our patrol deputies or by our investigators. There has to be a nexus to a criminal investigation. So we can't have, and we check for this in our audits, but we can't have misuse of the system where someone decides, oh, I want to see where my ex-boyfriend or my ex-girlfriend is driving their car around. Where are they hanging out? And then run their license plate in the system. If we encounter that, then that would be cause for discipline up to and including termination or even potentially criminal charges for misuse of the data. So we've got policy in place to make sure that if it does happen, we can address it. We can and will address it. And the other thing I'm reminding folks is it is data that helps us solve crime. We ended up catching a murderer a couple of years ago. And of course, we've had a number of arrests to help get people that are either committing violence or major person crime or property crimes like breaking into homes. And we've been able to take them into custody. Now, the concern is we don't want the data to get too large. So the way we overcome that, we only keep the data generally for 30 days. We have one of our contract cities that wants it for 60 days, and we abide by that. But I would say really anything, and it can vary in different parts of the state, I would think. Maybe I would never want to see the data kept more than 6 months. But for us here in San Mateo County, we always try to be ahead and do better. It's for the most part, it's 30 days with one exception, it's 60 days in one of our contract cities. So the data is it's not kept around forever. We want to keep it long enough so that if someone comes home from vacation after 2 or 3 weeks, we can look and see, hey, were there what vehicles were in the area that, or is there any criminal or was someone on parole or probation for burglary? Is there anything we need to look at? And so that's what those tools are available for. But protections with policy and making sure the data doesn't stick around forever is how we safeguard the community.
And if I
Thank
could just add a really quick anecdotally,
you.
the bad guys know which cities have them and which don't. We were given a briefing recently about a neighboring jurisdiction that saw a significant drop in crime, and they showed us a podcast that the bad guys. I didn't know bad guys did podcasts, but apparently they did. It's on YouTube, but they were talking about the ALPR systems and everything, and they knew who had them, who didn't, and they knew which cities to go into and not, which is intriguing. It's a little scary, but we don't advertise it, but they do, and unfortunately, it's kind of like where does the water flow, right? Like the lowest point of gravity, right? So that's it's something we're mindful of. Thankfully, at least in this county, we have a pretty tight lock, just as a perimeter, and all of our neighboring jurisdictions within the cities have very, very, very conservative policies as well. And so I think you will find that as a commonality. And I don't want to speak for the other chiefs in the municipalities, but from what I know, everyone has the same concerns, and everyone is applying a very conservative approach towards it.
Okay. And we only have 1 minute left, so I'll just ask this very quickly, and hopefully it's an easy yes answer. Is our community would like to know, can you all provide reassurance that even with pressure from the federal administration, that you will not cooperate with ICE?
Yes, thank you. Really quickly in 1 minute. When I was running for this position to be appointed, that was my commitment. I hold to it. We will not cooperate with ICE. None of our deputies are ever allowed to ask for immigration papers. We want to build that trust or citizenship status. We want to build trust. We want everyone to be able to call us if they've been a victim, witness, and we want them to know that this agency is different.
Okay. Well, I thank you very much. Fixin San Mateo County thanks you very much for being here this evening. And I have just a couple of quick announcements. One is tomorrow is the ICAC meeting. It's at 6:30 at 500 County Center Drive or on Zoom. They do a hybrid meeting. Please attend. And then on Thursday, March 5th, the sheriff will have a meet and greet with it's hosted by Senator Josh Becker and Board of Supervisor Ray Mueller at La Entrada School in Menlo Park on Sharon Road. Fixin San Mateo is having its monthly happy hour March 17th, 4:30 to 6:30 at B Street and Vine in San Mateo. No RSVP needed. Just please come and join us. And then join us April 7th for our all hands, where we will have John Alden talking about the successes and the challenges of the Sonoma County oversight model. Thank you all very much for joining us. We could talk for hours, I think, but the video will be made available by tomorrow, as well as the questions. So thank you, and we hope to see you all again next month.